air to them, and they seemed to be very peaceful, but they were very confident, very confident, and seemed to be observing quite a bit. This should be a familiar image. This is an image of what people describe as an even. And
Now I
a
know what
lot of
they
people
look
have
like.
described being abducted by this group and have interacted with the evens. Now, there was one group in particular that seemed to walk around as much as the Nordics and interface with the other groups. And they also seemed to have a little bit of power because these other groups would come to them and petition them to assist them in whatever grievances they had with other groups. I think they are some sort of a watcher group that are observing and making sure that this experiment goes to plan and isn't taken in any one direction. Now, in this image, this is the green-skinned people that I've discussed before. Their skin was literally looked the same color of an olive, a green olive that you pulled out of a jar. No difference. There was a man and two females present each time. They are probably, the man was probably about 6.5, 7 feet tall, and the women were about 6 feet tall. Very muscular. The men had very short hair, very military looking, like a flat top. The women had extremely long, shiny black hair, very shiny black hair that went down to the middle of their backs. And the women would sit with the male, and they would be very quiet during the actual meeting, but afterwards they seemed like more like social butterflies. They seemed to split up and then go to each group, and they were obviously socializing. And interestingly enough, my last trip, I had an encounter with one of the females, and it was the only time I had an encounter at one of these meetings with a non-terrestrial. I was there, Gonzalez was there, and we had some intuitive empaths that were secret space program military guys. And they were sitting there kind of making jokes a little bit about her looking like Captain Kirk's girlfriend. And at one point, one of these females walked up to me, and she had empathically or telepathically figured out what we were talking about. I guess she was so much in our consciousness, we became a part of her consciousness. And she came over and she asked us if Captain Kirk was someone that we served under. And it was pretty shocking. She came over and spoke in English to us, and was asking if we served under Captain Kirk. So it was a little bit of an embarrassment to me and those others. Now, this image here depicts another of the very human-looking beings, a very Asian-looking being. Their skin was more of a slightly more orangish tint, and they had these blue kind of cat eyes that the irises took up almost the entire eyeball that you could see. I saw them interacting quite a bit with the other human-looking groups. They seemed pretty standoffish from the insectoid type groups, so there seems to be some sort of a rift between those two groups, most likely a dispute in these genetic programs. Now, she does have feline-looking eyes, but she is not to be confused with the actual feline race that I only observed one time. It was on the research vessel, and they were moving its body. It had been, there was a capture or kill order out on these beings, and what occurred was these beings teleport around, and they were able to catch one of them, and it died. They weren't able to keep it alive, and it was a very kind of a lavender-looking, cat-looking being. And the head, the ears, and the face looked very cat-like. The body was more of a humanoid torso. So this image here is depicting one of the mantids, or a mantis race. They are very heavily involved in the genetic side of these 22 different programs, and they participate in several different programs. People will often witness seeing mantids